could you lie? And then I realized you're just as naive as I am. Oh, you're so traumatized, it makes me wanna cry. You dumb motherfucker, I loved you, I loved you, I loved you, it's true. I wanted to be you and do what you do. I lived here, I loved here, I bought it, it's true. I feel so stupid and so abused.
The most evil doctor in state hospital history was Dr. Jesse Fear. During the infamous documentary Suffer the Little Children, Dr. Fear bragged about his cruel punishments. He admitted it was to degrade and offend their dignity. Dr. Fear faced criminal charges, but was let off on a technicality. He returned to his position until his resignation.
To anyone who may be triggered by these topics, or anyone who's faint of heart, please keep scrolling. Serial killers from every US state. Part 29. New Hampshire. Terry Peter Rasmussen. It's hard to pin down Terry Peter Rasmussen. They called him the Chameleon because he went by so many names and aliases. In New Hampshire, he was known as Bob Evans, who killed one woman and 3 small children. He stuffed their bodies in barrels in the woods. In California, he was known as Gordon Jensen, where he killed 2 other women who were mothers of his babies. The body count rose across state lines as his lists of aliases grew. Rasmussen was finally identified, but he had already died in prison, where he was serving time for different charges in 2010.
Hi, it's Kelly. I haven't been down here in a really long time, like a month or 2. After what happened, I couldn't come down here. So, but my family's come down here a lot, and so has my brother, and they say they've seen nothing, and my brother, I made him look through every single room and everywhere, and there's nothing here, and I need to finish this video, so I'm doing it. So, this is a turning point, and I'm going to Mom, is that? Why is this door opening? Hello? Mom, is that? Why is this door opening? Hello?
My friend won't let anyone in her house after 9:30, and I just found out why. They're the happiest couple that I've ever met. Like, if you didn't believe in love, this couple would make you believe in it. But one evening, it all came crashing down. I arrived at JC's house at 5 p.m. sharp. She is obsessed with time, always wondering why someone's a minute late or a minute early, as if she's a detective and you're in her interrogation room. But before I get into what happened, let me tell you a little bit about JC. She's got pitch black hair, a nose ring, wears dark clothing. She's the type of girl that has pumpkins sitting out in the beginning of September. And she's super welcoming. Actually, the rug on her front door reads, "Leave now." So tonight I was going by her house because me and her had planned a movie night. But we had to start the movie night at 5 because she never lets anyone in her house after 9:30. As soon as I walked into her house, I immediately smelled cinnamon cookies. I was hoping they were for me, well, for us. But JC just brought in a big bowl of popcorn and some drinks, which was fine. I certainly wasn't going to complain and lose her trust for the next 2 decades. Then the movie ended. We thought Halloween 2 was okay. While JC went upstairs to find another movie, I decided to give myself a tour of the house, and here's when things started to go wrong. I was just glad she was willing to watch another movie and that she was letting her friends back into her life. She hadn't really been social since her and Tyler broke up. No one knows what happened between them, just that They were together one day and then the next day they weren't. After the breakup, no one heard from Tyler again. Then we started the second movie, Saw 4. She fell asleep during the movie, and the next time I checked my phone, it was 9:15. I thought, I better get going soon, even though she probably wasn't gonna wake up in the next 15 minutes. I headed over to the kitchen to grab a glass of water before leaving, and then I saw those cinnamon cookies on the counter, and I was like, she's not gonna miss one, right? After finishing the cookie, I turned on the water on the sink to wash my hands, but I was trying to be like really quiet because I didn't want to wake her up. The water didn't wake her up, but my scream did.
It was 1979 when brothers Linwood, James Jr., and Anthony Briley terrorized the town of Richmond, Virginia, when they went on a random killing spree for 7 months. Growing up, the boys were known to always be willing to lend a helping hand and were polite and helpful in their community. However, their classmates had a bit of a different opinion on them because in school they were bullies. They didn't even care when authority figures punished them. The only person the boys feared seemed to be their father, James Sr. But by the time they had become teenagers, their parents separated amicably, and even James Sr. began fearing his own children. He realized Linwood, the eldest, was having a huge influence on the boys, and James Sr. began locking his door at night with a deadbolt because he didn't know what they might do. It was on January 28, 1971, when 16-year-old Linwood saw his longtime neighbor, Orlean Christian, hanging up her laundry. He didn't have any reason, but he went up to his bedroom from the second floor and aimed his gun towards her. He pulled the trigger, and it fired, and that killed her instantly. At first, for some reason, no one noticed she suffered a gunshot wound and simply thought she died from exhaustion or a heart attack. However, later on, relatives noticed a spot of blood on her dress and became suspicious. A second examination led to the discovery of the bullet, and when police investigated, they found that it was fired from Linwood's window. When he was arrested, the 16-year-old was emotionless and simply said, "I heard she had heart problems. She would have died soon anyway." He only served 1 year in jail for that murder. By 1979, the Briley gang began their killing spree, and it started on March 12th, when the group attacked the home of William and Virginia Butcher. They rushed into the home, overpowering the couple and tying them up in separate rooms. They ransacked the place and took all the valuables that they could find. Afterwards, the house was doused with gasoline and lit on fire, leaving the couple to die. But William managed to free himself and save his wife as well before it burned. They survived and are known to be the only survivors in the Briley brothers' path. The group continued to kill at random. They often went for home invasions, but sometimes would pick strangers from off the street. Some of the female victims were also raped before they were killed, and their last known crime was that of the Wilkersons, their longtime neighbors. The Brileys broke into the home of Harvey Wilkerson, raped his pregnant wife Judy before killing the family, including their 5-year-old son. Police were on surveillance in the area and heard the gunshots, but they couldn't determine the location because it was muffled. They also actually saw the Briley gang coming out of the Wilkersons' apartment, but at the time didn't connect the two. 3 days later, a welfare check was asked to be done on the Wilkersons since no one had heard from them in a while, and that's when police found the grisly scene. Since they saw the Brileys leave the apartment days prior, the boys then became the prime suspects. Linwood tried to make a run for it, but police eventually captured him, and with their ringleader in custody, the other two brothers then turned themselves in. Aside from the three of them, they also had an accomplice in 16-year-old Duncan Meekins. It was Meekins who entered a plea bargain and recounted everything he witnessed. It took investigators time to connect that the other murders and rapes were also the work of the Briley gang. In the end, authorities say that they may have killed or severely injured up to 20 people. Linwood was found guilty and sentenced to multiple life sentences and the death penalty. James Jr. was also given the same sentence, including the death penalty. Anthony was given a life sentence with a possibility for parole since there was no definitive proof of him being a triggerman for any of the killings. Both older brothers were executed in 1984 and 1985 respectively, and Anthony Briley still remains in prison today.
Pale yellow Buick station wagon that pulled in approximately 3 minutes before Carly's abduction. The car appeared to drive by before briefly entering the car wash parking lot. The abductor may have seen Carly walking as he drove by, so he turned into the parking lot and decided to take her. It's also possible that he'd seen her shortly after she left her friend's house, and he then followed her to the car wash. Regardless, he'd likely thought about abducting a child long before he actually did it. When he saw her walking alone, he may have saw it as the perfect opportunity to act out his fantasy. Unfortunately, detectives couldn't make out the license plate or who was behind the wheel from the grainy footage, but they knew it was time to pay Joseph a visit. Officers arrived at the home of Joseph's friends, Jeffrey and Naomi Pincus, where he was renting a room after being kicked out of the home he shared with his wife and 3 young daughters. However, despite seeing Joseph outside smoking a cigarette when they first drove by the residence, they got no answer when they knocked at the door. Authorities spoke with the neighbors, who claimed they'd recently seen Joseph talking with a woman outside, who they believed to be his sister. They also expressed confidence that Joseph was still inside the residence and hadn't left. Joseph's sister returned to the property, and after speaking with the police, she went inside to locate her brother. Joseph finally emerged from the house and claimed he didn't hear detectives knocking at the door because he'd been sleeping. Investigators asked Joseph where he was during the time of Carly's disappearance. He explained that he'd been at home watching the Super Bowl and told them his friends could verify his story. They showed Joseph an image taken from the surveillance video, and while he admitted that the man looked like him, he insisted he was nowhere near the car wash that day. Next, detectives asked Joseph to roll up his sleeves, and they found that he had tattoos on his forearms just like the man in the video. They also noticed several minor cuts and scrapes on his hands. As if that wasn't suspicious enough, Joseph also admitted to borrowing Jeffrey and Naomi's yellow station wagon the day Carly went missing. However, he claimed he only drove the car to a nearby marina to look at the water before returning home. Police were feeling pretty confident that they had their guy, but when they spoke with Naomi, she confirmed his alibi, leading them to second-guess everything. Roughly an hour after detectives arrived at the home, Joseph's probation officers came to assist by conducting a thorough search of his broken-down Lincoln Town car. They quickly located drugs in the vehicle, including multiple syringes and spoons, and Joseph was arrested for violating the terms of his probation. Later that same day, Jeffrey, Joseph's friend, contacted the police with some unsettling information. He claimed that Naomi had gotten the dates mixed up when giving her initial statement to the police, and that while they'd let Joseph borrow their station wagon on the day in question, he didn't return until the following morning. Jeffrey also said he'd reset the odometer before Joseph left, and when he checked it upon his arrival back home, over 300 miles had been driven. Not to mention the inside of the car appeared disheveled, and the back seat was left down. Finally, when asked if he could recall what Joseph had been wearing when he left the house, he said a mechanic's uniform. Jeffrey and Naomi consented to have their home searched, but authorities found nothing of evidentiary value. Then, after hearing of the arrest, Joseph's mother stormed down to the auto repair shop where her son worked and demanded to know why the employees had called the cops on her son. However, despite her angry outburst, his co-workers felt that she too believed it was her son on the CCTV tapes when she proclaimed, "If Joe did this, I will get the truth out of him." Joseph's mother saying "if Joe did this" is an indication that she'd allowed that possibility into her head and hadn't dismissed it. A mother who 100% believed her child was innocent would likely say something that was much more firm, such as "he didn't do it." Meanwhile, investigators continued searching the wooded areas around where they believed Carly had been abducted, but to no avail. They also contacted forensics personnel from the City of Sarasota sanitation site and requested that they secure the transfer building for an organized search of the trash the next day. Little did they know that by that time, the search would no longer be necessary. While Joseph was in custody, one of his longtime friends entered the police station and asked to speak with investigators. Beyond telling them that the man in the CCTV footage looked very much like Joseph, he informed them of several occasions when he would talk about his growing desire to assault women. Shortly after this encounter, detectives transported Joseph from jail to police headquarters for a formal interview. The following interrogation footage has never been seen before.